So the question is here. Should you be reading the brand new Eternals series from Marvel Comics? So Kevin Feige is doing the unthinkable, in my opinion, and taking these characters into their own film. Whenever a new movie from Marvel comes out, the company needs to pump out a new comic book series to come out with the film, which is only smart. So let's be real now. These kinds of stunts are not the greatest usually, but this comic book is a lot different than the others. So do fans have a great comic book series to read after enjoying this, or potentially enjoying this new Eternals film? After reading 3 issues, I can say at this point, yes. So Marvel Comics has basically assembled a creative A-team here with Kieran Gillen and the insanely talented Esad Ribic on the art duties. So let's start the short view off with, of course, the writing. So that would be the characterization and plot. Kieran Gillen is someone that is very, very hit or miss with me. Some things he puts out, it hits. And some things he puts out, I'm like, I'm good. But what's really impressive that he has accomplished in this series is that he's finally made me care about the characters of the Eternals for the first time ever reading their comic book series. No joke. So even if you're like me, who had a little knowledge of these characters going into it, or if you're strictly a MCU viewer and you just kind of want to get an idea of these characters, Kieran Gillen has done a great job of breaking down all their stories and ideas that make them the Eternals and have them make a little more sense, and gives you a great ground floor for jumping on to understand and get to know these characters. I would say some of the narration of the series gets a little wonky at times, but that also has to do with the story, and there's a reason for it. But it does get a little jarring, but it's also interesting. So it's hard to hold it against them, but it does get weird at times. All right, next up is sequential storytelling and art. And as I said before, the art is done by the insanely talented Esad Ribic. Esad Ribic's art in this series is just straight up phenomenal. I love the very surrealistic way he approaches the characters, but he also gives them a reverence that makes them appear godlike, which they essentially are, but they're not. And obviously, he has plenty experience drawing godlike characters with his Thor run with Jason Aaron. And I think that it shows. It's just an extension of that run as far as the things that he's drawing. Everything he draws in this series has a very deep cinematic feel. And with a new movie coming out, I think it only will help sell this comic book going forward. Next up is the fine details. These are the things like the lettering, the inking, and the coloring. All the things that we usually take for granted in comic books. Basically, the unsung heroes of comic book culture. Now, I'm going to single out Matthew Wilson's coloring specifically in this series, and I love the coloring. Almost surrealistic quality to it, and I think it really enhances Esad Ribic's pencils completely. The muted color palette of this series gives it a very reverent feel, and I don't know if that's just me or maybe I'm just projecting from the art that I love so much. I don't know, but whatever it is, the muted color palette that Wilson uses just really works for this series, and I think it only adds to the solid writing and phenomenal art that this series gives us. All right, it's score time. For characterization and plot, I'm going to give this series not quite a 4. It's going to be a 3.8. And for sequential storytelling and art, I'm going to give this one, honestly, a 4.5 out of 5. There were a couple spots that Esad Ribic was cutting corners on, but either way, for the most part, this series was a phenomenal art job. And lastly, the fine details, I'm going to give this series a 4.5 out of 5 for the fine details like lettering, inking, and coloring. Yeah, I love the coloring of this book, and it's not quite a perfect 5, but it's pretty dang close in my opinion. All right, and that gives us an average of 4.2 out of 5, which that's a pretty good score. Again, this is a great series to jump on for a ground floor of anything Eternals, and this wouldn't surprise me if this series showed up in a future MCU required reading down the road when the eventual movie comes out. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please like and subscribe so I can get into that sweet YouTube algorithm, and follow us on Twitter at Binge Comic. And again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Hopefully.